Thanks, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. Can everyone hear me okay? Right. So I'm going to talk to you about empowering creativity 3.0 today. My name is Susan Cummings. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tiny Rebel Games, and we're building something we call the Petaverse Network. So my background, I'm a video game developer. We're Web 2, by background. My partner and I have been making video games for nearly 25 years, and we've worked together pretty much throughout that phase. I founded 2K Games and 2K Sports back in the day. If you're familiar with BioShock and Borderlands, I signed those things back in the day. My partner was a producer on the Grand Theft Auto series. We love new technology. We got excited about free-to-play mobile when that became a thing. We got excited about augmented reality, and now we've gotten excited about Web 3. And in fact, this really brings together all of the things that we love. Tiny Rebel Games, we set up our company here in Wales in 2016. I'm obviously an American, but we moved our business over here. And we closed a $7 million round of seed funding in January, led by Fabric Ventures, one of the sponsors today. I believe we were their first non-Web3 native investment, which was really cool and exciting for a game developer. We're currently raising our Series A. And I was told at first to talk about why we made this transition from Web 2 and to Web 3, and what the challenges are for a game developer moving from Web 2 to Web 3, which was last year, and I didn't really want to talk about that because we've kind of already done that. But I do think it's worth talking about why, because I think it'll frame a lot of what I'm talking about today, which is we wanted to make a set of games and experiences with a shared source of truth data. We wanted to bring together what we knew about games, what we knew about AR, and there's talk within the game industry that you can't bring things between experiences, that you can't take a Tomb Raider skin and bring it into Call of Duty, which is, of course, true for obvious reasons. But if you start thinking about it in a Web3 sense, and you start thinking about data and text as opposed to as images, like the Loot NFT project, you start to think about how you actually might do things like this. So our goal last year was to create an open standard for metadata, to allow other users to have access to everything that we have and not have a privileged place within what we're building, and to build an ecosystem. And our roadmap is to get as Web 3 as possible. I think everyone here probably knows there's still a lot of Web 2 involved in Web 3. We're trying to move down that Web 3 route as quickly as possible as technologies come available to do everything that we want to do. Petaverse Network, what we're building, it's an interoperable, cross-chain, reinterpretable metadata solution for building these pets. And what's so important in my mind about what we're doing is that we want these pets to be relevant 30 years from now, because we don't know what blockchains are going to win. We don't know what systems are going to look like. We don't know what fidelity is going to be possible 30 years from now. So we're building to make that possible because of composability. What got us excited last year, and we were one of the early companies, I like to think, that were getting excited about this. Everyone was talking about play to earn last year. Every single game investor turned down our company because all they wanted to hear was that we were the next Axie and that we were focused on play to earn. Where instead, we were focused by Animoca, for example, one of our investors, saying that we've always rented our stuff. Imagine what happens if we own it. And I think people are catching up because on Twitter, on LinkedIn, everyone's starting to talk about composability, about owning things, about the value of being able to have your thing and move it to different places. And that's so exciting, and it doesn't have to be about speculation. You don't buy things just to sell them. You buy them knowing that you could sell them if you wanted to. So, Petaverse Network, we think creativity should not be owned or constrained by anyone, which is a radical departure from the way we think as game developers and is part of our embracing Web 3. We think that restrictive IP rights from companies and from countries only hurts fans and fan creativity. And you wonder how our cultural landscape would look differently if that weren't the case. So, tumble down the rabbit hole and think about Alice in Wonderland, which is public domain, and all the derivatives and use cases that have come out of Alice in Wonderland over the years. And you wonder if that would be the case if it hadn't been public domain. We think that unconstrained creativity is that new Wonderland, ever growing, ever sustaining, ever reimagining itself. And we kind of feel like we're Alice peering over the fence. And on the one side, There's fans desperate to make stuff around the thing that they love, to show their enthusiasm for something. And on the other side are the companies and country laws saying you can't. And that's what constrains creativity. And our goal is to try to diminish that as much as possible. If you search for fan remake shutdown within the game industry, you'll find plenty of examples of this, of companies shutting things down, which was really just about fan love. There's a tension between fans wanting to show their love and companies wanting to control their IP. And that's a sort of natural friction there. Some companies have engaged with that on some level. Blizzard, for example, empowered their users with fan website kits. And what came out of that were amazing fan sites and free marketing for Blizzard because they were empowered to use what they loved. Two game genres came out of this. The MOBA genre came out of Dota, which was a mod of Warcraft 3. Team Fortress Classic and Capture the Flag and co-ops all came out of a Quake mod. And so there's loads of precedents for saying, if we let you play with our stuff, you gain cultural relevance. Some companies, again, do tolerate things like memes. Imagine if memes weren't a thing. Imagine if we couldn't reuse memes. Anne Rice, the author, was very against fan fiction for a long time. And she was famously quoted as saying eventually that maybe fan fiction is a transitional phase, that whatever gets you there, gets you there. And that was a big departure from the way she used to think about things. But it still isn't quite there yet. What if that fan fiction is an end in and of itself? And it's not just about getting them back to your thing. It is, it's self-valid. So today I want to talk about fan creativity and how companies can lean into the creativity of others, what the options are for that, because there are loads of, there's no blueprint yet, like everything else in Web3, for how do we think about user rights. And what happens when fans don't have to ask permission? What happens when we just give them carte blanche to have fun with our stuff? And what could grow in a wonderland like that? So it's been fascinating to watch the Bored Ape owners. I'm going to just take us through a little virtual slideshow here that shows you how how creative people have gotten with the Bored Ape Yacht Club IP. Now that's our, if any of you are going to the Fabric party tonight, we did a mashup with our family's brewery, which is this Possum beer. But obviously, Bored Apes, there's an owner of a Bored Ape who went off and put it on a beer can. It's just really remarkable, amazing stuff that has made the Bored Ape Yacht Club so culturally relevant. Now, what's really interesting is how reinterpreted the Bored Apes get. Look at this picture here. There's 3 different use cases of the same Bored Ape. Reinterpretable metadata, as I was saying, is fundamentally important and brings me to another point, which is the licensors. I was talking to a film company this morning, maybe it's here, about how we think about brands. Imagine bringing Disney characters, imagine bringing Universal characters into reinterpretable metadata. And so what that means is if I have Snoopy and I make a one-of-one of Snoopy and the metadata is reinterpretable, what's Snoopy going to look like? Is Snoopy suddenly anime? Does Snoopy end up with something, something negative, like something derogatory on him? And how does a brand react to the fact that Snoopy looks like a bad guy suddenly? And how do we deal with that? And that's a really important question for brands, is are you okay with the fact that fans are going to go off and do their thing with it? And I think some brands are, and some brands aren't. And I think that the ones that are going to stay relevant now in Web3 are the ones who are going to deal with that and be okay with that, because then you get new things like Stoner Cats and what's happening with Bored Apes, and they're culturally relevant because they're okay with the fact that people reinterpret. And so I think that that's really an important point as well. So CC0, which is a very new term for me as a game developer. It was something I had to learn about. It's the Creative Commons Toolkit, and it means that you're relinquishing all your rights. And it's basically treating something like public domain. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the way to go, but I think if we're going to figure this out, And we're rapidly trying to figure this out and talk to people within the industry. I think we have to start with what's the ultimate end there, and it's CC0, which is to say that do whatever you want with it. MFers is a really good example of this. It's like a 2-line thing about IP rights, and you can go off and go crazy. It's clear to us that transferring some of the rights is going to be beneficial to the amount of creative energy that these projects are going to get. That increased visibility leads, again, to increased cultural relevance. As you can see on the right there, you have the original NFT project, you have clothing brands, video games, published books, artists. In our mind, yes, there's the potential loss of value in being able to, like CryptoPunks, do a TV deal. But ultimately, if we're worried about selling more and more NFTs, this is a great thing for us. The more culturally relevant it is, the more out there the brand is, the more important it is. A couple of examples there. Nouns, Loot, Goblin Town, WTF, all things we're all aware of, huge floor prices, all to some extent CC0 or close to CC0. There's a non-CC0 spectrum, which Bored Ape really is at the one end of, and we did have CryptoPunks at the other, with CryptoKitties somewhere in the middle. Again, this is all about, and what's really important is also to think not just about the IP itself, but the NFT. And it gets more complicated the more you start to move away from just the visual interpretation of it, but the underlying metadata. This does not want to click. Right now, it feels like, for example, with Bored Apes, we're at the point we're paying someone to model and rig and animate, like you saw in some of the Bored Ape, Yacht Club images, is really amazing and groundbreaking. But it feels like it's just a stop along the way. Like, we can do so much more than that. CryptoKitties, Kittyverse, was an attempt to do just that. You could take your CryptoKitty and you could make new games with it. Obviously, it was a JPEG, and there was only so much that you could do with a CryptoKitty. What we're doing within Petaverse is we actually want to empower users with everything that we have, and we're not charging for it. So we're saying there's probably over $100,000 worth of value that we're willing to expose to the community. Selling merchandise is cool, but imagine being able to make something. Imagine being told there's this audience of people out there who own and love these things, and there are all these things that they can do with them. So we want people to use our tech to make interactive experiences and games. And as I said, we're willing to give away everything we have to do that. We don't want a privileged place within the Petaverse Network. We want to sell NFTs, that's our one privilege. But everything else, anything we can do within our games and experiences, we're committing that everybody else will be able to do too. And that's how we're going to build an open standard. We're empowering other development teams. So anybody who knows how to use Unity can take our cat stack and create new experiences for pets and bring our pets into them. We are blockchain agnostic. We're launching first on Polygon, but we plan to support Layer 1 Ethereum, Solana, IMX, Flow. So we want to be everywhere we can be, because these pets should be able to go anywhere they can. We will open source our tech stack, and we will be actually looking to do game jams and funding for developers to build new experiences around the Petaverse. We are empowering influencers and streamers, because ultimately we're building an avatar, and we want that avatar to be anywhere you want it to be, including influencer broadcasts. So we're going to make it so that you can bring your pet into your influencer stream. We are empowering fans with the building blocks of composability. And for everybody else, we're empowering you with an avatar for your PFP on Twitter. We are going to be launching alongside our Genesis drop an instant utility app that we call the Memetron that allows you to share your pet straight to social media in terms of like YouTube video experiences. Our PFPs will be evolvable and change with you based on the experiences that you have. And lastly, and I haven't really shown this anywhere before, we gave Aardmen our pets and asked them to reinterpret them, how they might look in the future when higher fidelity is possible in mobile devices and on AR glasses. I don't think we have any audio. Oh, we do. I'm just not hearing it.
Look who's here. My forever digital pet. With me any place I choose to be. Any platform, any experience. On my mobile, on my PC, virtually everywhere I go, they can follow. And I can't wait to see where we go next. Petaverse Network. The future of pet ownership is here.
Any questions? Thank you. I feel like I sped through that. I was told 20 minutes, and then I was told 40 minutes. It wasn't really 40 minutes, close to 20. Yes?
Hi, thank you so much. That was really fascinating for me. I'm a neuroscience PhD student, and I research presence and embodied mixed reality, and I also work in the health space. So something happened the other day. There was an accident, and a friend of mine had a head injury, and it was actually really terrifying and scary, but the thing that got him to stay calm when we were waiting for the ambulance was mentioning about D&D, so like a game. So it's really interesting, the applications of creativity and characters in health. And that's one of the things I'm really interested in. So this type of format could be the completely open source. Could be really amazing for accessible healthcare, especially healthcare in digital, say, metaverse or other ways. And I just wanted to ask about some things, because do you ever work in the health space and this relationship between health and ethics in the implementation of all of these things, because it's such new ground? And I just wondered about your kind of multidisciplinary collaborations in these other areas where we might have similar worlds that we're building, but from very different perspectives.
Well, I think, first of all, the holistic use cases of being able to have a virtual pet when you can't have a real pet, I think are really profound. One of the reasons why we want these pets to still be relevant 30 years from now is so that it becomes like your pet. There are people who who shouldn't have a pet, who don't have the patience for a pet. There are people with allergies, children who can't have pets because their parents won't let them, people who don't have enough space, elderly who can't care for a pet anymore. And you start to wonder, when you start to blur the lines, and if these same pets can stay relevant, because we can go across blockchains, because we can up-res metadata, then 30 years from now, the same pet's still relevant. And the NFTs that we're building have a very rich metadata set, which defines their behavior. It defines their D&D alignment, going back to D&D. It defines their spellcasting abilities. It is where their memories are stored of how they problem solve. So these become robust things that you could pass on to your child someday as an inheritance. But going back to what I should tell a story. What is really interesting about what you're saying on the XR side is how relevant it is to healthcare. There was a project, a VR project about throwing snowballs. I don't know if you saw this, but they tried this at a burn victim hospital for children in Texas, I think it was. And they did this experiment where instead of morphine, they had a kid throwing snowballs while they were having third-degree burn treatments. And they found that the pain reduction was comparable to the morphine.
Yeah, it's like an alternative to pharmacology. This is central to my thesis, so I'm a pain researcher in perceptual interfaces.
Awesome. I'd love to talk sometime. I think that stuff is fascinating. I really do. It's something we'd love to help, for sure.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions? We done?
All right, thank you, everybody. Can I have a round of applause, please, for Susan Cummings? Thank you so much, Susan.